All right, guys. Not
up,
sure what we're
guys?
doing. Addie's gonna help me out. 7th grade, little YouTube video maybe. If I get really angry and throw something, don't be too surprised. We're gonna talk about the abolitionist movement, movement to end slavery. All right. This will be a little different. We're not really in a classroom. We're in the new MH120, my house, for the foreseeable couple of weeks at least. So we'll start off with CW-1 and number 1. So. Addie, why don't you read that question and tell me the answer that I have?
What was the abolitionist movement? A movement to end slavery.
Yeah, to abolish.
To abolish.
Right, to end slavery. So the abolitionist movement to end slavery. So who were the first ones to want to abolish slavery? Who were the first couple of people or groups, Addie?
Well, the Quakers and Ben Franklin.
Yeah, Ben Franklin. Remember Ben Franklin? And then the Quakers, that group that believed that everybody was equal and that we should treat everyone respectfully, you know, the crazy ideas. Excellent. Number 3. So some abolitionists refer to the Declaration of Independence when they talk about how the evils of slavery. And they did that because they fought that revolution for liberty and freedom, and the Declaration says all men are created equal. And so they point to that and say that we as a people should believe that, and that slavery definitely does not allow us to believe that. Addie, number 4. How did some abolitionists differ on equality for blacks?
Some thought blacks should be equal to whites. Some thought they shouldn't have full political and social equality.
Very good, very good. So there's differences within society, obviously. Some abolitionists thought that they should be blacks should be considered equals to whites, whereas others simply thought that they should have freedom but not be equal. So there's still even racism amongst the abolitionists. The colonization movement is a movement that takes place early 1800s, where freed Africans would be transported to Liberia, which is a country in Africa, and would be established. It started under President Monroe, and in fact, the capital of Liberia is, anyone? Monrovia. Very good. So 12,000 freedmen actually moved back to Liberia to start this colony. Number 6, William Lloyd Garrison was a newspaper publisher. He published a newspaper called The Liberator, which was an anti-slavery newspaper that really focused on the evils of slavery. And so the next couple of questions deal with these evils of slavery. The Grimke sisters, number 7, were sisters from a South Carolina plantation who witnessed slavery firsthand and the evils of slavery firsthand. And so go north and spread their message to really illustrate what the evils of slavery are all about. Frederick Douglass is an incredible story, and we just touched briefly on his history, but he comes up later on. He's going to be an escaped slave. He escapes from a plantation in Maryland and goes on to become a very, very important African-American leader later on in his life. He's going to fight for equality and the abolition of slavery, and then we'll go on to have a big impact on America later on. We'll talk about that a little bit later. All right. Number 9. Sojourner Truth is another former slave, and she changed her name to Sojourner Truth. A sojourn is a long journey, so she's saying that she is taking a long journey to tell the truth about slavery and the evils of slavery. She's also going to be a fierce advocate for women's rights and how women should be treated more equally than men. No, not more equally than men, but more equal or as equal to men as they can be. And so Sojourner Truth is an important person during this time period. All right. The Underground Railroad. What was it? Oh, Addie left, so I guess I'll tell you. I'm telling you guys, this isn't nearly as much fun as having you in class. Underground Railroad is it's a secret organization that worked together to get slaves from the South to the North and eventually to Canada. It was not a series of underground passages, so don't think about that. It's called underground because it was secretive, and it was called a railroad because they set it up like a railroad would be set up. So you would have different stations, which would be safe houses whether they be in Virginia or Ohio or Indiana or Michigan. And then the people that would lead these escaping slaves to the north would be called conductors. And so various conductors would conduct or lead these escaping slaves north and then eventually to Canada. Now, no slave was free until they actually made it to Canada. And that's something you need to remember. They were always under the threat of being recaptured and sold back into slavery or taken back to their masters. And so this Underground Railroad plays a huge role in trying to free as many slaves from the South and get them to Canada. The description of it, I kind of gave it to you, but fugitives would travel what's called freedom trails. So these trails north from the South, from the plantations. Each place they stopped was called a station. Each person that guided them was a conductor. That's my dog. The mail just showed up. I apologize for this. It's okay, Andy. Anyways, each person that guided them was a conductor, and one of the most famous conductors is obviously Harriet Tubman, which we'll talk about in just a moment. They used disguises and fake papers, almost always moved at night. They used the stars to get north. Follow Dancing Gourd was a popular thing, and the North Star guided them. So, hold on one second. Let me